Where does Cam Rising rank amongst the best quarterbacks in the Big 12? And is Kyle Whittingham or Deion Sanders the better coach? Let's discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes on X today. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College. That's all caps, no spaces. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code Locked On College for Gametime. My name is JT Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by a first-time guest in Colin Moore, who is the creator, host of Everything with Life and Football, the podcast. You guys do a ton of great work on socials. You guys can give him a follow on X at Life and Football. At Life and Ball actually is the X handle, but lots of different stuff out there. And Colin, that's actually how I first got to hear about you. You put out a list of the top 5 quarterbacks in the Big 12, and absent from that list was Cam Rising. Obviously, Utah fans were not a fan of that. Your list as follows goes: Shedeur Sanders, Rocco from Iowa State, Noah Fafita at Arizona, KJ Jefferson at UCF, and then Alan Bowman at Oklahoma State. So me personally, because anytime we're going to talk about a list, I'm like, all right, I need to sit back and do my own list. And then through going my own list, personally, I decided to place Cam third. I did that for the amount of big games that Cam Rising has been in. I think the ability to come through in some of those clutch moments is really something that counts too. Cam is never a guy who's going to light up the highlight tape, but he consistently gets things done. He's pretty accurate. He can offer some mobility too, but there's also the injury concern. So I can get why he's at times overlooked. And I will say there are some really strong and solid quarterbacks in this conference. I don't know if it's, the Pac-12 from last year, right? We saw Caleb Williams and Bo Nix and Michael Penix, all those guys top 15 picks. The guy who's at number 1 in your list, and I'll already say number 1 in mine too, Shedeur Sanders, we both expect him to be in the top 5, maybe even the number 1 pick. I think he's got a really good shot of that too. So I have Cam at 3. I'm curious for you, why did Cam not crack your list?
Man, Cam good. When Cam out there, he's balling. With the last season he did play over 3,000 yards. I think the season before that, close to 3,000 yards. Both season rushing wise, he almost had about 500 yards. So he always gets it done. It's just in 23 he wasn't there, so I couldn't put him on the list.
That's fair.
And he was. We don't know what would happen. Now he probably would have balled. Most likely he would have had a good year, but he wasn't there. So that's why I actually didn't put him on, because he didn't do nothing in 23. Everybody else done something that year. Even the quarterback from Kansas, he's a baller, but he didn't finish. So I only put guys on there who finished, and I ranked them from there. Like, okay, boom, what's their touchdown and the interception ratio? And at the end, when I put Bowman on there, I could have went with West Virginia quarterback, because I could have slid him down. I could have, but I just gave Bowman because he's been there a very long time, just like Cam Rising. They've been there. They should go in there and be able to control it. But if Cam would have played, Cam probably would have went to the league, so he still wouldn't have been on the league. He would have went to the NFL. Yeah. But if he comes and play like he did in 22, yeah, he guaranteed on the list. It ain't nowhere around it. He would guarantee most likely make that top 5. But it is a lot of good quarterbacks in the Big 12 right now. So that was the only real reason why I didn't put Cam on there, nor that Kansas quarterback, because Cam didn't play and the Kansas quarterback didn't finish. So I put guys on there who did the whole thing. Now, if they just would have lit up the board beforehand, like say Cam would have played 5 games and lit it up, but then that'd have been a different ball game. But he didn't even get to come out.
Yeah, and that makes it, and also I like that you said you were consistent of Daniels not being on your list as well from Kansas because he had a really good season too. And like for my list, I did who I think is going to be the best going into this year, assuming everyone returns to health. That's the caveat, and I will say that's a big caveat. Cam had, I mean, we thought Cam was going to start in 23, and there were talks of him playing in the first game. Then he's not in the first game. And then he misses all those games too. So I can understand from the outside perspective why there are concerns about Cam Rising getting back to that level. And like you said, you didn't have Daniels on there too. For my own personal list, I did have Shedeur at number 1. There's obviously a lot of noise surrounding the Colorado program right now. But look, Shedeur was incredible last season. And you look at that offensive line he's playing behind. And I don't think they're going to go from one of the worst offensive lines to one of the best offensive line. But there's no question in my mind it'll be a step in the right direction. And I also just think another year or two at this level, Shedeur was already really good. I think he's only going to get even better this coming fall with some more consistency with the weapons as well too. So I got him there. Noah Fafita was the really close call for me because of the strong things he did, like ranking him just over Cam. But man, he balled out in every opportunity late in the season, and I gave him a slight nod. Then I went Cam. Then I went KJ Jefferson and Jalen Daniels. But this is also something that I do think bears in mind that a lot of us Utah fans who are coming over to the Big 12 now need to keep in mind. Once again, there are not, outside of Shedeur Sanders, I don't know if there's another quarterback, maybe Fafita if he did something crazy, maybe one or two of the other guys. It's going to go in the first round of the draft this year. Man, the middle of these quarterbacks are really solid. When you talk about an Avery Johnson at Kansas State, right? Will Howard and him would have had a little bit of a fight for a job. I think Howard still would have won it had he stayed. Now he's getting an NIL bag going over to Ohio State, right? But he's a guy too in some limited opportunities, 479 yards and 5 touchdowns. We know what KJ Jefferson did during his time at Arkansas. Did it go the way that they hoped in his final year? Not really to the wayside, but there were a lot of other reasons for that there. There's reason to believe Gus Malzahn could maximize him. You already mentioned Garrett Green from West Virginia, who had 2,406 yards, 16 passing touchdowns too, and ran for 772 yards and 13 touchdowns.
Exactly.
So a dual threat type of guy as well. And even a guy like Bowman, who had 14 interceptions, and that's why I have Cam over a guy like a Bowman too. And Cam being a 2-time conference champion is why he gets that top, is why I put him third for me. But Bowman's the guy who's been in some big games. And look, even though the strength of that team is Ollie Gordon, he had to do good things as well to get them to the Big 12 championship game. But in making this list, Colin, it's clear to see that this conference still has some worthy quarterbacks. And the Utah defense, even though I expect it to be one of the best in the conference and in the country, honestly, is going to be tested some of these weeks.
Oh, it is. It is. Like, I love what y'all got. I love what K-State got. I love what Kansas got. I think UCF went and loaded up. And they've been just quietly getting that guy, and that guy, and that guy. And then at Colorado, we loaded up. If the O-line come and do what we believe they can do, we're going to be sitting real good because we got running backs. And I actually believe we got the number 1 wide receiver core in the country. Like, I really, and I'm going to do like you did. I'm going to go check them stats. We got so many guys that we got one guy caught 108 passes. We got another guy caught 50 plus, another one 50 plus, another one like 40 something. And that's our starting wide receivers. Then you got Omarion Miller could come through and do something. So, and then other guys as well that's true freshmen that's coming in that everybody talking about. So I believe this year I'm looking for Colorado to pull a Cinderella season like TCU did that year when they won 5 and 7, and then the next year they got their few little pieces and the ball bounced their way and they was in the chip. And then you seen Michigan scored 2 times and the ref said, "No, them ain't touchdowns. I don't care what y'all talking about. Wipe them off the board." So that it can happen that way. And then I seen Tulane go 2-10 the year before, and then the next year turn around 10-2. So I feel like this will be our Cinderella year. But it's all in how good that the O-line and D-line be. But it looked like we got a solid squad at Colorado.
It does. And keep going.
Yeah, that K-State, they coming back with it. Kansas, they coming with it. And Oklahoma State, I think they're gonna be solid. I just really don't know how to call them. Even though they played in the conference championship game, I just still don't know how to call them.
They got spanked by UCF 45-3. That's where it's always tough to have like faith in them going back, right?
Yeah, man. So it's just wild. Like, man, I'm just ready to see it. Like, I'm really ready to see it. And August the 29th, our season starts.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great season to watch this first year of the new look Big 12. So many fun rivalries are going to form. And, you mentioned it. The reason Colorado's in position to potentially make this Cinderella run is because what Deion Sanders has put together and assembled at Colorado. So I want to talk about the job he's done assembling Colorado versus the job that Kyle Whittingham has done consistently building up Utah. We're going to have a fun debate about that in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes. We're going to dive a little bit more into our friends at Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to tip-off. You can pick out the seats you want, and there's so many great features, whether it's flash deals and zone deals. If you're checking flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. If with zone deals, you can save even more when you choose a selection and let Gametime choose the seats. All-in price views, which allow you to know exactly what kind of a deal you're getting up front with no surprise fees at checkouts, like so many ticketing companies love to hit us with at the very end. Also, you can get a panoramic view from your seat, so you know exactly what kind of a feature you're getting. And that's without even mentioning the ticket coverage, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. It's capital L-O and all of college capitalized. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Colin, we talked about the quarterbacks. Now let's talk about the head coaches. You also put out a ranking where you had the best coaches in college football. You did list Deion Sanders at number one, not just in the Big 12, but overall too. So I want to get your thoughts on that in a moment. I think that let's focus on just the Big 12 here, because I'm not going to try to go at Kirby Smart right now with his 2 national championships and some of the things he's assembled. That's a battle I'll let you fight with the Georgia fans, because I know they can be a rowdy bunch too. But talking about what Kyle Whittingham has built, I just think the job he has done navigating Utah from the Mountain West into the Pac-12 to now the position he placed themselves in. If he does not have the success that he has at Utah, back-to-back conference championships, making several more, Utah one of just 10 programs to have a winning season in every year of the old college football playoff format. So every year a winning season. If Utah doesn't have that success, I'm not sure they're not with Oregon State and Washington State right now. I think in some ways, Kyle Whittingham may have even saved Utah athletics with the amount of success and winning he brought in there. And coming through in those conference championship games, the results that he's gotten right now is, to me, why I have him as the number one coach in the Big 12.
Yeah, man. He's done amazing. He truly has, like, from that one game in 2004, I guess, when Urban Meyer left and he had the bowl game, and then from really 2005 all the way up to now, he has been putting in work. I always look at, I looked at his record and Coach Prime record. So, everybody will say, well, Coach Prime only been coaching since 2020. And so if you look at his 2020 and Coach Prime 2020, their records are basically identical. Coach Prime got 31 wins and 14 losses. Coach Kyle has 31 wins and 15 losses. They identical. So at that point, you basically sliding us up there at number one based off the record. But when you look at what Coach Prime is about to do with Colorado, I think we're going to fly past a lot of people. And that's why I feel like Coach Prime is the number one coach in the country, because when you look at it, if you would have gave us what Kirby Smart had at Georgia, or would have took off like a rocket. You would have gave us what KD got at Alabama right now, took off like a rocket. The coach at Michigan took off like a rocket. Ryan Day took off like a rocket. You give Coach Prime that, man, he gonna stun on everybody. But he didn't get there. He got the bottom of the dump, and he had to, and I ain't saying the players was the bottom of the dump, but the record was. He had to flip a whole roster, and then now we just putting in the pieces. And we done put in so many pieces. I don't think people who watch them from the outside see it. They just see, oh, they're 4-8. How are they going to win? Well, TCU was 5-7, and they went to the chip. TC Tulane was 2-10, and they went 10-2 and beat UCLA in their bowl game. I mean, USC in their bowl game with the number one pick overall the year before he got drafted this year. So I believe this year could be our year, but based on the 2020 to now, Coach Prime and Coach Kyle record identical. We just got one loss less than Coach Kyle. So I still got him number one. I would really have for the conference the Big 12. I have right off the top of my head now.
One.
The K-State coach.
Okay.
The Kansas coach. And then I go Coach Kyle. And then my fifth one, I have to look at the see.
Hey, Gundy. Gundy's done a lot. You were talking about them earlier.
Yes, but
that's the reason you we believe in Oklahoma State in general, right? Is when they have some questionable talent around, it's like, well, Gundy always finds a way.
Yeah, he holds on. But I think this could be a year for UCF. So it'll be Gundy or Gundy or the UCF coach for that fifth spot. But I give it to now. Arizona would have had the main thing, but they switched coaches. So yeah, they may have a team, but they switched a lot.
They lost too. They lost players.
Yeah, so it's like I know they're gonna be good, but how good? Because it's a new coaching staff. The players got to get used to the coaches. The coaches got to get used to the players. They don't have that whole thing that the other coach that went to Washington, he had been with there like 3 years and built it. So yeah, that's kind of where I see them coaches at right now.
So the only thing I will say is talking about their comparing record. You have Travis Hunter, because I've followed your list, Colin. Yeah. You have him as the number one Heisman favorite this year. You have Shedeur at number 5. If we both had to say, I think we have this in common. I know there's all this Carson Beck hype, and then there's also I just blanked on his name. Quinn Ewers has some hype too. Yeah. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be the best quarterback in this upcoming draft, and I think he'll probably go number 1 if the team with the worst record needs it. Do we agree on those things, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you on that. I want to rewind back from this season of Colorado to 2 years ago when he was at Jackson State. Having those two players, which was against a talent disparity like it was, I think is part of the reason that Coach Prime and some of the players he brought in there being better than that level, hence why so many of them were able to jump up right away at Colorado, is part of the reason they had so much winning success there. Hence why when he moved to the Big 12, it did not go as smoothly this year, is because, and I will say part of what you're saying is fair of, hey, he had to take over the worst team in Power 5. That's how bad Colorado was. So there's going to be a natural progression and standpoint too. And I also think it's fair, some of the things you're saying of, if he had these rosters, he would have done these things.
Right.
That is a hypothetical. We have to see him do that. So I will say this, if Deion does that a few years from now, which I believe in Deion, I think he's actually going to have a lot of success at Colorado. I don't know if he'll get up to number 1. I can very realistically see him getting into the top 5 and the top 10 very much so for the things he's already done and how quickly he's turned around the program. It'll be interesting to see how they've gotten some other good recruits too, but it will be interesting to see after Shedeur departs and Travis departs, both who could be 1 and 2 picks in the draft, where things kind of go from there. But a lot of those coaches, the Kalen DeBoer and all that, they had to build their programs into that. And obviously Coach Prime got close in a couple games last year, but still took some lumps in the Big 12. So for me, that is why I still have Whittingham 1, is because in the Pac-12, he went back-to-back in conference champions. All of the coaches you listed have not won a conference championship in a few years now. I think Gundy's the lone exception. And Kansas, Leipold had to turn around a lot of things too, right? Kansas State, they're the one I will say, they're the ones that they did win Big 12 2 years ago. They beat TCU before getting on and over there like that. But Kyle Whittingham is the only one to go back-to-back. So that's where I would still have him over Coach Prime.
Yeah, it's gonna be game on. I'm so ready for this season because it's a lot of coaches that know how to coach ball. It's a lot of good teams. There's no cupcake on my schedule. I didn't see y'all schedule. But
you guys know. You guys don't. You guys literally scheduled NC State and not NC State. North Dakota State, who is like the FCS FBS giant slayer.
Yeah, like I don't know why they went and did that. I would have done that. Why they wanted, but good thing we will be ready for that game. Now, all I need is the players to understand that squad is a real squad. Don't play with them like they some cupcake team.
Yeah, Iowa's learned. And Arizona's learned in recent memory that you got to be careful when you're going against those Buffaloes. They're just such a powerhouse of a program. Now, they just lost their head coach, who went to be the linebacker coach at USC, kind of a weird departure and thing there. So we'll see how they are this season, but always that FCS program that gives you pause. So I agree. I think the only one I look at is when I'm just glancing at Colorado's schedule here, I'm not too scared of the Cincinnati game for you guys. Baylor's got some things too. Right. I think the Colorado State game was close last year. I think with the additions you guys have made to your program, you've clearly passed them by. But man, that was a fun game last year, I will say. Like just the rivalry and everything it developed into, and credit Coach Prime for how he handled some of the criticism that was fired at him in the opposite way too. So it's a season with a lot of fun storylines. And one of the biggest ones could be when Utah and Colorado meet later on in the season, as they will face off November 16th, Saturday. I was hoping Utah would play either BYU or Colorado in the final week of the regular season, try to build some form of a rivalry.
Right.
They clearly did not try to do that, as Utah's taking on UCF, which, as we both kind of said, that could actually end up being an interesting game with some of the interesting things that UCF has going. But want to talk about this Utah versus Colorado game right now in one moment, because first we have to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes, our fantastic friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on the spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. And how great have the NBA playoffs been right now, whether it's been the series between the Denver Nuggets and Minnesota Timberwolves, or look at what's going on in the Eastern Conference, the Knicks and Pacers back and forth. Are the Mavericks and Thunder, who's going to come out on top there? And that's without even diving into all the NHL playoff action and MLB regular season in full swing. For all the latest action, head over to FanDuel Sportsbook today. All right, Colin, I've taken the first word on most of these. I want to give you the opportunity here. You mentioned Colorado is going to surprise a lot of people. The game, Utah versus Colorado last year was a mess, right? No Cam, no Shedeur. Utah was on like their fifth string. I think Colorado might have been on their third string, if I remember correctly. Like it was a brutal game. Like it was not one that is any indication of how the rivalry should go up between these two teams going forward. So this should be our first year we get a real representation of it, barring the health of Cam and Shedeur, of course. But I'm curious, Colin, at that point in the season when those two teams meet, who do you have coming out on top as we sit here in May?
Now, me and my business partner, Michael Figures, that's who me and him started this business, the Life Football business with. We spoke about this last week. When I got to Utah, I had that as a question mark game. I had us with I want to say 7 wins and then question marks on the other
when
5.
You reach the game, yeah. So you're thinking bigger.
Question marks on the other 5. Like it depends on what we do. So when we get to that Utah game, it's going to be on what we do, because we know y'all got tight ends. We know y'all got wide receivers. We know you got a quarterback, and we know you got a running back, because the running back from my area, Jalen Glover. He from Lakeland.
Oh, Jalen, yeah.
Yeah, so he from the area. Then you got the DB from Armadale. I think he go by Scooby-Doo or something like that. Number 9. Last name Davis.
Last name what?
Davis.
Elijah Davis. I don't know if he's actually going to play. I'll be honest with you.
That I don't know, but y'all do got some Polk County guys. So y'all come to us this year. And last time I seen in 22, Jalen played at Colorado and he was running all through them. I think that was his true freshman year. And then now, last year he got to run the ball, and then this gonna be his 3rd year. So we know he gonna run the ball, but we ready this time. We are actually ready. Like we got everything in place. I think we're gonna have one of the best defenses in the conference as well as in the country, but it's just all on time. We got to see it. Because if I can have it the way I want to have it, I would love to play the first game in August and win all of September, and then handle October. If we could do that, we'll be seeing good. But I know when we play y'all, that's my question mark game, because you just never know. I know y'all gonna come with a run game. Know you're gonna have the tight end, you're gonna hit them tight ends, you're gonna hit the wide receivers. So, and y'all are solid. And like you say, the defense already gonna come back pretty solid. So it's gonna be a good game. So hopefully we can get that W.
A lot of Utah fans think Utah is going to blow out Colorado, but I'm actually I've kind of gone the opposite way. I've said it's not going to be a blowout. It's one of the games, when I look at Utah's schedule, I don't see a ton of losses because of how much talent is coming back from a team that won a conference championship and a roster that doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. But when you talk to me about, what questions do you have about the Utah in general? I say maybe some things along the offensive line. I don't know if the buffs are there yet. There's some potential there. for their defensive line, offensive line, like how they're going to be in the trenches. I expect Utah to still be better than Colorado when they match up there, depending on how all those transfer pieces come together.
Right.
But Utah's biggest question mark to me in terms of roster right now might be the secondary, because there's still a lot of new there. And I feel good about the players they have there. But this is a Utah defense that they were ranked inside the top 13. It was more so because of how great their run defense was than their pass defense. Still a good pass defense. But what's the weakness when you're going against a great quarterback? And I think Shedeur is that. I think that Utah will still be able to get pressure on Shedeur. But Shedeur is capable of making the throws that Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams has that have made those games against Utah tight, because we're used to having the Utah offense produce and then the defense holds the team down. But that elite quarterback steps up, and that can be the ultimate difference maker. And that's why I think Colorado can be one of the teams. I am more worried about playing Colorado in some ways than even some of the other teams, because I look at a team like in Arizona, and it's like, man, I know like Fafita is really good too, as we were kind of talking about earlier, and he has a chance, but that game's at home versus this one's at Colorado too, and you still got that elite quarterback. That's where I think things could get really interesting. As of the time we're recording this, I expect Utah to still win. But I think Shedeur Sanders is really good. And the teams that have beaten Utah, pretty much all of them have had really good quarterback play. So that will be the big question mark, is how is that Utah secondary gelling by the time they get to Colorado? It's going to be a really good game, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it all gets sorted out when these two teams face off. Can't wait for it all to happen underway. And we got a lot of time until the season gets underway as well, Colin. So if people want to follow more and get more football content and see more of everything you have going on, tell them where they should head over to.
Yeah, they could check. Well, hold on. You know, we got basically the number one wide receiver core in the country. Like, I don't care how nobody tries to.
You said that earlier.
That means if you worry,
you got Travis Hunter.
Yeah. If you worry, we gonna eat that. And then
I said slightly worried. We got some pretty good DBs.
I don't know if they can run with all that. Then you got Coach Sapp with the D line and all the D line additions we got. This thing finna get real. That's why we just waiting on it. But they could tune in to Life and Football on YouTube, and then you can tune in to us everywhere. We on YouTube, Life and Football on YouTube, Life and Football on Twitter, Life and Football on Instagram, Life and Football on TikTok. We everywhere. And I even teach people how to use their social media, because I went from 3,000 subscribers. Me and my business partner went from 3,000 subscribers to almost 25,000 in the course of a year. So it ain't no telling how much we're gonna grow from this January to the end of December. It's just no telling. So I teach people how to do it. Like, we got a class May the 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They can email me if they want to. Info, that's INFO at lifeandfootball.com. So info@lifeandfootball.com if they want to know how to put that YouTube together and put your social media together. Because without my social media page, you wouldn't have knew about me. But when you work it all together, YouTube and social media, I'm getting paid from YouTube, getting everything we get from social media. So all that stuff build, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it doesn't stop unless I stop or my business partner stop. And we don't plan on stopping. You see, what's that old man, Paul Feinbaum? If he can get on TV and talk, I surely know eventually somebody got to come get me if they got him. Now, it ain't nothing against him. It's just if they got that old man on there, they can have me on there and let me talk. But in due time.
Well, hey, we appreciate you taking the time to jump on here with us, and you have done a great job growing everything. It's been fun and interesting to kind of dive into everything. The platform that you have built like that, it is expansive. So if you guys want to know about growing a platform as well as just seeing more great content, make sure you guys head over and check out everything that Colin has going on today. Colin, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me.
Appreciate it, man.
That is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you next week talking more things Utah football. We look forward to seeing you then.